Hey guys, welcome back to part 3 of the Elderberry wine series. If you've been following the videos, part 1 is where we actually started this batch. That was on June 3rd, 2013. 7 days later, on June 10th, 2013, I racked it from a primary fermenter, which is just a bucket like this one, into a secondary carboy. And the fermentation should only have taken 30 or 35 days, and I assume that it was finished fermenting then, but I let it sit until August 21st, just a few days ago, for a total of 72 days. Now, for all intents and purposes, the fermentation has probably been over for anywhere between 40 and 43 days, but because this is the first batch of wine I've made that's actually not made with cheap store-bought juice, I decided to let it sit and age a little bit in secondary and to kind of like clear naturally. Now, the first step that you have to do when your wine, which this is now, if it's not fermented it's called must, after it's fermented it's wine, the first thing you have to do is you have to kill off the yeast in it and sterilize it basically. And what we use for that is called potassium metabisulfite. Okay, this is the bag that I use. It says to kill wild yeast, add 1/4 teaspoon per 6 gallons of must, and that's exactly what I did. Now, this is also a sanitizer. You add 2 ounces to 1 gallon of water, and you do have to rinse it off, as it tends to be very harsh, but it is effective. Now, I've stated in my other videos that I use iodophor to sanitize all of my equipment and the utensils that I need when making wine or beer, but I use potassium metabisulfite to sterilize my bottles. Even though I have to rinse them off, I don't want to leave anything to chance, you know, with beer or wine sitting in bottles for a couple of weeks up to a couple of years. For my 1 gallon batches, I use the same thing, potassium metabisulfite, but I use it in the form of Camden tablets. Now, these are very useful because it's just 1 tablet. If you can see that, it's just 1 tablet per gallon. Now, if you use the tablets, you have to crush them up before you use them. Don't ever throw it in the into your must hole. And regardless of whether you use the tablets crushed up or the powder, always dissolve it in about a 1/4 cup of warm water. Stir it and make sure there's no sediment on the bottom, and then add it to your must or your wine. Now, this is already fermented, but before we bottle it, we have to degas it. As everybody who makes their own alcohol knows, yeast consumes the sugar, creates carbon dioxide gas, and of course alcohol. Now, this isn't as carbonated as beer, but there's some carbonation in it, so we have to do something to get the carbonation out of the wine. Now, you can go out and you can buy a degassing wand or something like that. I myself, I went to the local hardware store and I just picked up a paint mixer, and I make sure that I clean and sanitize it every time I use it. And for all those asking, this has never ever been used to stir paint. I have another one for that. I attach it to a drill, and to degas the must, all you do is put it all the way down to the bottom and stir. Okay, see the foam developing on top? That's the CO2 or carbon dioxide that I'm forcing out of the must. And this isn't a very hard step in the process, but it does take some time. I will lay on the drill for 10 minutes straight. I'll let it clear. I'll do it a second or even a third time if I need it, but since you guys get the general idea, I'm going to do this off camera. Stick with me, guys. I'll be right back. Alright guys, we're back. Now, I stirred this for 10 minutes constantly. I let the foam subside. I did it a second time. Let the foam subside. I did it a third time and let the foam subside. So now I'm confident that all the CO2 is out of the wine, and now we can add the chemicals to clear it. But before we do that, something I forgot to say before was, when you add the potassium metabisulfite, after you add it to water and you pour it in your fermented wine, you stir it up gently, you can't do anything to it for 24 hours. The reason for that is when potassium metabisulfite is mixed with water, it produces or gives off sulfur dioxide gas. And the sulfur dioxide is actually what kills the yeast and any other bacteria that may or may not be present in your wine. And it will eventually work itself out of solution, but that time frame is 24 hours. So add the potassium metabisulfite the day before you degas it. Now, what I'm going to use to clear it, and it goes by many names, right? This one just happens to be Liquor Quick Super Clear KC Finings. You can use it for wine or beer. Alright, now this is a two-stage fining. Packet 1 is Kesosil and packet 2 is Chitosan. Now, do not use this or any other brand with those chemicals in it if you're allergic to seafood, because I believe Chitosan is a shellfish derivative. Now, the instructions on it say packet 1, Kesosil. Add first after fermentation is complete, stir gently into wine, wait 1 hour prior to adding Chitosan. The instructions on packet 2 say add last between 1 and 24 hours after Kesosil. Dissolve in 1 ounce of warm water first, add gently to wine for 30 seconds, allow to clear completely. Now this product, if you've degassed the wine the right way or properly, will clear your wine in as little as 24 hours. I traditionally allow my wines, after adding both of these packets, I allow them to sit for 3 days, because I mean, if it clears in 24 hours, after 3 days, you're absolutely positive everything or all solid particles are out of your wine. So I'm going to cut this first bag open, and I need to get scissors that actually work. Okay, and all we do is try to get as much of it out of the packet as possible. And then it says to stir gently. Now I will use the drill and my paint mixer to stir it, but I turn the RPMs down. And there we go. Now, have to wait an hour before we add packet 2 or the Chitosan, and I'm not going to let the camera run for an hour unattended, so stay with me. We'll be right back.